Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I've gotten questions on and off for the last several years around. Basically, it goes to a why don't they? And the comment is, why don't the publishers monitor, police, patrol, stop the social media feeds of the creators, particularly when somebody's having a crazy day or going off, and sometimes every day is a crazy day. But why doesn't the publisher get involved in all that? And I'm giving you the answer. I think it's a truthful answer, which is, generally speaking, when you have an independent contractor relationship, you have to be careful about what kind of rules you enforce. You can make them, but you have to play it out differently than you do for a full-time employee legally. With FTE, you can come in and say, hey, you can't do this. Hey, you can't go on kind of weird racist rants. That will violate the terms of your contract. But with when you're talking about a writer and artist, you can't really go in there and just, easily, well, put it this way, you can easily fire them, but it's a much different story. You don't have the same mechanisms that you do for full-time employees where, HR wants you to go through a process or documentation. You can clearly point at rules, and if the person wanted to, they could sue to say, you're laying me off for, basically behavior you never told me I couldn't do. So that, there's reasons for that. But there's another reason that's a little bit more pragmatic. And it might, this is one of those where look at your own job, look at your own workplace, and, tell me if it's, you tell me if it's not different. Basically, if right now, unfortunately, social media, it's pervasive. Everyone can easily get to it. You can sit there with your phone and on the toilet and ram out a couple tweets, whatever you happen to do. I mean, in the elevator, I'm going to tell you how many times I get in the elevator of a company or a business, and people, you can see from the reflection of the people are on Twitter or on Facebook, and they're checking in, they're posting stuff. It's just very easy. It's very easy to throw a single thought out, put the phone back in your pocket, and go on about your day. It's also very easy to kind of just sit at your desk with Twitter open, as we've seen from various documentaries on Disney Plus, and just be bothered all day. Very easy to do. If you're going to monitor or police that, you have kind of one of two options, and everybody takes the second option. And I'm not just talking about comics, by the way. I'm talking about everywhere. Your first option is that you hire somebody and you make it part of their job to regularly monitor and patrol basically what's going on social media. That, for example, a comic editor, a Jordan White, part of his job every single day is to go to the social media accounts, everybody that's working on books that he's editing, and, check to see if anybody's being crazy. And if they are, intercept and, write them a note saying, hey, cut that shit out or whatever. That's one way to do it. That's very labor intensive. And when you have a lot of people working on a book, and the fact that you could, tweet at any hour of the day, any time, this becomes could quickly become a full-time job. Now, by the way, you may, and because of that, it's not practical. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute. I see a lot of these editors also tweeting. Can't they, while they're posting their crazy shit, can't they just kind of monitor what's going on with others? Yeah, they could. Again, but that's kind of try to solve the problem through bad behavior, right? Meaning you don't really want those editors sitting at their desk all day fucking around on Twitter. I mean, no boss would want that. So most companies take the second approach. And the second approach is basically ignore it until it becomes a problem. Unfortunately, until it becomes a problem is highly polarized and tough to deal with. Look, if you're on Twitter, people encourage you to, do hotter and hotter takes. And generally speaking, because we're very polarized, you can say pretty much anything you want to your own tribe, to your own clan, and get away with it. Nobody's going to come after you. You can get away with a lot, and people do. And therein lies kind of the problem, because it's sometimes hard to really determine what is truly bad behavior versus what is just stirring up trouble because of whose sides are. Now, I said it's harder. That doesn't mean it's impossible. Doesn't even mean it's necessarily hard, just harder. And I think some things are pretty obvious. Look, as much as people say that the pros get away with all kinds of stuff, Chuck Wending went on what was clearly an overline. I mean, he made it very easy. When you're telling, hey, all you people in the country, go eat a bag of shit. I would like to, like, he threatened violence to him too. Like, I would like to punch you in the, I like, he, he checked all the boxes really, really quickly and efficient. You got to hand it to him. He's a very talented writer. He was able to, make it 100% clear that he needed to be removed from a book, and he was. But generally speaking, a lot of this stuff is tougher. Even things that you definitely are annoyed by, like you take that thing about Tom King and his attack on Jay Lee. But if you look at that tweet, it was like somebody did a cover for a book I don't, I disagree with. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one cover of the book, and it's this cover. He didn't do it. Anyway, it was written in such a way that everybody knew what he was talking about, but it wasn't so over the top, just fucked up that, you could immediately take action on. And in those situations, then it's really up to, somebody. People get mad, people report it. Somebody need to take the time to look into it. It's just like in that world, many companies quickly default to screw it as the option. By the way, that's not a good thing. I'm not saying it's this is a positive. I'm just telling you this is the way it is. And that's kind of where we sit. I wish that I absolutely wish that there was more monitoring, more control over social media. I guess for the posts, but more than anything, because people wasted too much time on it. It's a time killer. And in a lot of cases, if you're trying to run a business, it's poison. It's poison when you're trying to let's get something out on time. And the one thing I guess I would say to a lot of creators who are like, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, here we are bitching about social media again. I'll put it to you for this way. I hear from a lot of different writers and artists that they are waiting forever to get a response from their editor, from somebody inside the company, from somebody in licensing, somebody in talent relations, whatever. You hear these stories, kind of horror stories, about how unresponsive a lot of people are. Now, by the way, make no mistake about it. I think what is unresponsive can wildly vary depending on who you're talking to. And I have no illusions that some creators like, I've sent a mail and 3 minutes went by and I didn't get a response, unresponsive. There's definitely that. I was talking to a writer who was really pissed that they didn't get a response. And then it came down to, they had mailed an hour earlier and they hadn't gotten a response back. And they're like, person's not doing their job. But generally speaking, there is a lot of noise in comics about people just not being responsive, and things, key story elements, stuff that they're trying to get checked on. Like, hey, can I use this character in a book? I would like to use Jon Stewart in this comic as a character. Can I do that? Sure, I'll go check on that. And then they just hear nothing for 2 weeks. And you're like, oh, what's going on? The problem is social media is kind of like the tattletale, where if you're a creator and you're waiting to get a response on something, or maybe it's something more serious, like, hey, I think you owe me a check. I think you owe me a royalty here. And they hear nothing, complete silence. Or if a creator, and these are real examples, sends in a pitch, like, hey, I want to do this comic. It's going to be, here's the characters, here's what we're going to do, here's a pitch. And they get kind of interesting, let me look it over from the editor. And then silence for 2 weeks, just person falls into a black hole. In those situations, what a lot of creators do is they head over to old Twitter or Facebook to see if the editor is tweeting. And if the editor is tweeting something like, oh man, I ate so many pizzas, I vomited all over the floor and then fell asleep. They get pissed. It turns out they tend to, not appreciate somebody who is way behind and not getting back to them. Simultaneously, posting about vomiting all over the floor. They tend to get a bit irked at that, a bit peeved. And so I think that, if you're a full-time employee, shit, I wouldn't do it. But people ask me, like, why isn't there more? Why don't people police it more? Well, because it takes time. Bluntly, it takes time. And comics is not spitting off just millions and millions of dollars for the publishers to hire somebody full time to just monitor the tweets. It just doesn't happen. Doesn't make it okay. It just, practically should be pretty difficult. Not impossible, pretty difficult. I know that some of you are going to be like, "Oh, that's bullshit. They could easily do it." Yeah, I mean, probably, but I'm just giving you the reason. That's one of the big reasons. But also, if you are on social media for them, and then post about dumb random shit on social media, they're seeing that, and they hate you. They hate you when that happens. Just for what it's worth. Anyway, there you go. Thanks for listening.